Well, hello, and welcome to the PJH Writing Command Center for another podcast episode from God Bless the Keg Publishing, LLC. Fantastic stuff. And I am Paul John Hausleben. I am the flagship author, chief photographer, music reviewer, music critic, do everything guy here at God Bless the Keg Publishing, LLC, with a little help from my friends. And the friends are gathered here today, and they're very excited about this podcast episode. And before we get started, I want to have a special shout out and a happy birthday greeting to my dear mom. Happy birthday, Mom. We love you. We all love you. And it's her 92nd birthday. I'm recording this on the 28th of June. In 2026. So happy birthday, dear Mom, and all the friends, and I know the listeners. Happy birthday. Fantastic. So if you're a first-time tuner-inner, then welcome. If you're a long-time listener, a subscriber, a follower, a reader of my books, then welcome back. And we're very happy you're here to join us for this podcast episode. So before we get started, because I don't want to, I'm going to pull a Gene Shepherd again today. I can feel it. And I want to try to get this subject matter in my allotted time. And I've been trying to get those times down. I've been unsuccessful because I go all around the bend and I get locked. So at any rate, here, get your little Orphan Annie decoder pins out of that Christmas drawer. I tried to not say that, New Jersey Christmas drawer. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Corporate Facilities Group Incorporated, the leader in technical consulting, facilities maintenance, facilities management, and operations, as well as property maintenance and management services throughout America. And now, CFG Incorporated is proud to announce a new department, a new initiative, headed up by the amazing Mr. Steve McMillan. Let's give it up for old Steve Aruski. He's a great guy. Great red hair, too. Steve brings his many years of experience as he manages pre-construction services and estimating for residential development, residential renovations, and light commercial projects for CFG Incorporated. So before you spend big bucks on a project, let old Steve Aruski check out the contractor scope and price to make sure your hard-earned money is going in exactly the right place. Check them out on the web at www.corporatefacilitiesgroup1.com. That's www.corporatefacilitiesgroup1.com. And many thanks to Lydia, Steve, Liliana, Summer the dog, and Smokey the kitty cat for sponsoring the podcast from the great CFG Incorporated in beautiful Marietta, Georgia. Thank you so much. And this week, I was reminded of a couple of things in a discussion. I had to go rescue the great Callie Rose, who had a blowout on the highway. She called Paulie for a rescue mission. And of course, it turned out to be a bit of an adventure because she didn't have a spare. She didn't have a spare tire, so we had to go through all adventures. But and it was in a precarious location on the side of the highway there, and we successfully got the situation under control. But my goodness gracious, the people that would speed by us and absolutely flying while we're on the side of the road, and I had my truck and I had the safety light going and I had safety cones, all these safety items that I carry with me. But my goodness. So I looked up some statistics on speeding, and there is a website, injuryfacts.novembersierracharlie.org. And of course, speeding is a major factor in traffic deaths and injuries. It's better to be a few minutes late than not there at all. Speeding catches up with you. The speed limits exist to keep you safe. Don't push the pedal, because speeding catches up with you. If you don't break your speeding habit, you may break your family's heart. And remember, your choices behind the wheel affect everyone around you. Choose a safe speed. And you can get more information at injuryfacts.novembersierracharlie.org. So listeners out there, please do slow down. Don't be heavy on the old pedal. So that one, I didn't have a listener send that one in. I generated that one myself by just standing on the side of the road and watching just the for lack of a better word, the carelessness of drivers out there. So slow down, you'll get there. And I always remember, see, I'm starting to digress already. There was, in one of my former lives, I had to commute, if you know the area, from Laconia, New Hampshire, in the foothills of the White Mountains by the Great Lake Winnipesaukee, all the way down to just northwest of Boston for consulting in a job I had. And I did that for a very, very long time. And I would work my way up the Daniel Webster and then get on the interstate up there and wander up and down that interstate. And I remember there was a article, because it was notorious for just, once you got to New Hampshire, just flying on these highways. And there was a toll there on Interstate, I guess that's 93, I think. Yes, Interstate 93, up from the Massachusetts border all the way up through Nashua and then Manchester and then Concord. And I remember there was an article written by a writer who did a study, one of these research guys, one of these guys that go out in the field, those kind of reporters. I love that kind of reporting. And he did a live study on from the Massachusetts border up the Interstate 93 all the way up to Concord, and a study on people who did the speed limit versus people who went 10 to 15 miles an hour over the speed limit on that same route. And the folks who sped above the speed limit, and I believe it was 65 at the time, got to the state capital in New Hampshire, Concord, an average of 2 minutes before the people who did the speed limit. Because the perception is you're going faster than everybody else, but the ebb and flow, the normal ebb and flow of traffic doesn't allow you to get there any faster. So there, I'm preaching, because I watched those cars zip by and we feared for our lives trying to change his tire, and we were on an off-ramp. We were actually on an off-ramp. And we actually had one car who sounded their horn at us because they were annoyed with us being on the side of the road. Why are people so angry? Anyway, check it out on that .org and slow down. So Paulie's getting off his soapbox now. And everybody's thankful about that, right? The friends are happy. So today I want to talk about with the World Cup going on and soccer, football, association football, whatever you want to call the most popular sport in the world. It has just been an amazing few weeks here now since the World Cup started. It's been a fantastic tournament so far. I've been following it as much as I can. There's so many games. My goodness gracious. And now we're down to the knockout round, I believe, of 32. So I've been following the USA team, of course, except for the one night. And I get that there's time shift. They played Turkey, and the game was 10 o'clock at night on a Thursday night. It's a little tough for the working guy to watch that match, but I've been following England. And I do like to watch some of the Europeans, of course, Spain and the Brazil team in South America and Mexico and all these clubs that are teams that are highly ranked and favored to win the cup. So been really fun and focus on the amazing sport of football and how just it is part of cultures. It's part of the way of life of people. And sure, I love the Yankees. I love American baseball. And I do have a dislike for the New York Jets. And of course, I love my hockey. But I don't think there's a sport that captivates and fully envelops people's lives worldwide as does football, soccer, however you want to call it. It's just part of a culture as well as a sport. It's that type of sport. It's so simple. A ball and a net, and you can shoot on your own, and you could shoot with your buddy, and you have one-on-one. It's very much like street hockey. We didn't need much more than just the pavement and our sneakers and a couple sticks and somebody willing to be the goalie, and that was usually me. Kind of a simple arrangement that you can have fun. And I don't see a lot of kids outside. I've dwelled on that in a past podcast. Things have changed so much. I don't see kids playing stickball or even throwing footballs or hitting the wiffle ball, the plastic baseballs, or doing all this stuff we used to do. But I do see kids kicking around and dribbling and having fun with the soccer ball. They don't even have nets. They're just passing back and forth. And that's the kind of sport it is. By far the most popular sport in the world. And the World Cup just amplifies that. And I think it's a fantastic, fantastic thing. So I do have a great love of the sport. My mom's side of the family coming from the Midlands in England, Nottingham, city of Nottingham is where our home city is. And my grandfather, my great-grandfather, a lot of my uncles, cousins, everybody involved in the sport of football in and around Nottingham. And our home town club is Nottingham Forest, one of the oldest, if not the oldest club in England. Certainly there's a couple that are in and around that, but 1865, so it's 160 some years old. And Nottingham had a great history, winning European back-to-back championships during the Brian Clough era, and all this great history. And then they languished. They fell from grace, fell from the top tiers and fell down, not good clubs for years and years, all the way down to League One at one point, and got themselves back up to the championship. And then in 2022, on a day I'll never forget, they played a playoff in Wembley and won and made their way back to the Premier League. And it's not been easy for Forest. They had 1 year, not this past year that just closed, the year before, where they did very, very well and worked their way up into the playing in the Europa leagues in some of the competitions. And it really wore thin. Our roster didn't support that. We didn't have a lot of depth, and we struggled last year. But we did avoid relegation just barely, and got to play in the Premier League one more time. One more year coming up, and hopefully we're all wishing for better things now. We didn't qualify for Europe, so we have a easier schedule where you don't have to play the Wednesday, Sunday games, which really wore out the team. So, any rate, we have a love of soccer in our family, a love of football, and we do watch the World Cup. But in 2022, when Forest made it back to the Premier League, I would talk to the aforementioned Callie Rose about my love of Nottingham Forest. And certainly it was hard to follow the club when they were down in the lower leagues. Championship League is on some of the networks here in America, but most of the time I was just following on the internet. And of course now they're back in the Premier League. And I would talk endlessly about football and the Premier League and matches coming up during the season when I worked with Callie Rose, the aforementioned Callie Rose in her flat tire with no spare. And Callie's Mexican-American, so her family, of course, is rooted in football too. Football is life. And we'll get to Danny in a little bit here. And Callie had an appreciation because her family's always got the football matches on the TV. And anytime I would visit her family in their home, they'd always have the Mexican leagues playing or whatever league playing. And her stepdad, a great football fan. So we would talk about football all the time. And she started to tell me about this show, Ted Lasso. And she said, Paulie, you got to watch Ted Lasso. Paulie, you got to watch Ted Lasso. You got to watch Ted Lasso. And it's on the Apple streaming thing. And folks that know me, and of course, tuning into the podcast, my being an advocate for radio and the Magic of Radio series, which I want to add one more too because of something that happened this week. Callie would always say, look, you got to watch this show, Ted Lasso. It's just so amazing. And Callie is a sports fan, but she's not going to sit down and watch soccer matches, football matches every single weekend. She could watch a hockey game if it's there. She could watch the football, baseball, not so much, but certainly a person who has an interest in sports. But I was kind of surprised at how much she loved this show called Ted Lasso. And people that know me, I don't have a love of TV. I don't watch TV shows. People say, oh, Paulie, did you ever see this show, that show? I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no interest in television shows. I'm just being honest. I listen to my sports. I listen to my music on the radio. I listen to the games, soccer, everything, baseball, hockey on the radio. Now, I do enjoy watching football matches on the TV because I can see the structure of it. And I watch American football too, things like the Super Bowl and everything that are broadcast on regular channels. And I didn't even have a TV. I had a little monitor that I used a special tuner through my ham radio to pick up over-the-air signals until 2 Christmases ago. And I bought a little TV. It's sitting on a table right next to me. It's only small, I think 17-inch. Not a TV guy. But Callie kept telling me every time we talked about football, how I had to watch this show, Ted Lasso. So finally one day, and I think this was about 2 years ago, Callie came over to the Writing Command Center and we were doing some projects because we worked together at our primary source of income, but we also worked together at God Bless Keg Publishing, LLC. And Callie did a variety of jobs for me. And she sat down here at the desktop at the command post, right where I am right now. And she brought up the internet and she brought up this Apple streaming thing. And she typed a bunch of stuff on there and put her login apparently onto my desktop. And she said, there you go, Paulie. I want you to promise me that you're going to watch this TV show. And she made me do a handshake promise. And knowing Callie, she probably made me do a tequila toast too. and she said, don't snooker me on this, Paulie. Sit down and watch this television show. It's about football, but it's also about life. So I said, yeah, I promise I'm going to watch it. So the next opportunity I had, Saturday nights is usually my nights when after the sports are over and after my chores are done and after I write and I do all the stuff I need to do, food shopping, all this stuff, I have my chill period. And I usually pour 3 fingers of scotch in a glass. And I sit down. I usually patrol the internet for new music artists, things like that. Recommendations that come in, whatever. And I check out new music. But I promised Callie, so I brought up the show, Ted Lasso. And I started, there were 3 seasons at that point. And I started with season 1, episode 1, and I watched Ted Lasso. And it changed my life. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I always said that Dire Straits' Telegraph Road, that song changed my life, changed my music life. Ted Lasso is the most amazing television show I've ever watched. It is exactly what Callie Rose described it as. It's not just about the sport of football. It's about life. And it's about human relationships. And it's about how everything we do can be intertwined with each other. And it's about how a person, one person, can bond with the proper team and change everybody's outlook, everybody's perspective, everybody's life. Just one person. It's brilliantly written. It's brilliantly acted. The hidden nuances in Ted Lasso is something that is astounding. And I don't, like I said, I'm not a TV guy. And that first episode blew me away. And then I watched the second episode, and I watched the third episode. And before you know it, I had a regular routine of every Saturday to watch 2 episodes of Ted Lasso with my little scotch. When everything was quiet and my mind was clear, I would watch 2 episodes of Ted Lasso. And like I said, it changed my life. The character arcs, the writing on this is just amazing. And they bring these characters, and I don't want to have spoilers. If you've never watched Ted Lasso, then don't I'm worried. Don't listen to the rest of this podcast. Just take the advice of Callie Rose and go watch Ted Lasso, and shut this podcast off. Bye-bye. I'll see you later. See you next podcast. But the character arcs, right, from the owner, and the premise is so easy, and it can be easily perceived to be a comedy, and it is, but it's also a drama, and it's also about the daily flow of life and things that happen to everybody, and a mixture of different people. And sure, it's about the sport of football. It's about strategies sometimes. It's about watching players do special plays and the fan base and all this stuff that's going on. But this show with the character arcs, like take Rebecca. Rebecca Welton is the owner of AFC Richmond, the fictitious Premier League team. And she goes through a bad divorce with a husband who is kind of an evil dude. And Rebecca inherits the football club and takes it over as owner and president. And because of her adversarial relationship and this horrible divorce and this horrible life event, she has bitterness, and she has this goal to drive this AFC Richmond team into the ground. So what does she do? She looks around and sees Ted Lasso and his assistant, Coach Beard, who won a low division college football championship. And she offers him the position to come and coach and manage AFC Richmond. And he accepts the position along with his faithful assistant. And this all came about from Jason Sudeikis, who did a commercial. It was kind of a spoof commercial about an American college football coach who becomes the coach in England of a Premier League team. And someone said, wow, that would be a great concept for a show. And they took it from there and they just built upon it. But Rebecca's arc is just one of the arcs in the story, in the whole story of Ted Lasso from episode 1 to 3. After a couple of meetings with Ted, she realizes that he is a good human being. And he's so optimistic and so positive, and he has such great energy and this just amazing outlook on life. But she still makes it her goal to drive this team into the dust. And as each episode progresses in season 1, things change. But the supporting cast, you have Coach Beard, whose first name is only mentioned 2 times in Ted Lasso. His first name is Willis. Coach Willis Beard. And he's the mystery guy, the deep, dark guy who's just a super genius at football strategy. And he's always reading football strategy books, and he's learning all about the sport of football. And being an American football guy, and now being a football coach. And he's the deep guy, and he's actually the strategist. Whereas Ted Lasso is the morale guy, the observer, the booster of human beings. And he says very often, I'm not here for wins and losses. I'm here to develop human beings into being the best person and people they can be. Not only players on the pitch, but off the pitch too. And then you have Higgins, Leslie Higgins, played by the amazing Jeremy Swift. Just an amazing actor who's director of football operations of AFC Richmond. And he's like the timid, meek guy who's really not timid and meek. And he's a sidekick at first for Rebecca's antics as she tries to drag Richmond down in the mud. and he goes along with it for a period of time. And he's just an amazing actor and an amazing character. All these characters are simply amazing. The acting is stupendous. You have Juno Temple as Keely Jones, the beautiful former model who's now in public relations, and she becomes the PR person for the club. You have the great Nate the Great, who's the Kit Man, played by Nick Mohammed, who's another amazing actor. And Ted Lasso realizes that Nate is a football genius too, and he eventually makes it to be a coach, and all the character arc that occurs with Nate the Great is just simply amazing. You have, I'm not going to say my favorite character, but certainly, maybe I'll do that podcast, my favorite 5, where I'll rate the 5 favorite characters from Ted Lasso. You have the great Roy Kent, the crabby, constantly cussing and swearing. Now, if you're faint of heart and you don't like F-bombs and you don't like obscenities, be forewarned. Ted Lasso has a lot of obscenities. It has sexual references. It does not gloss certain things over. So that's something that you got to be aware of with Ted Lasso. It's real life. It's real life in a locker room for sure. And Roy Kent is the grumpy old superstar who's faded out, finishes his career as captain at AFC Richmond, suffers a terrible injury and has to retire. But he does come back. And that's one of the greatest episodes in Ted Lasso. Absolutely love Roy Kent. And then you have an assortment of players in there. You have Sam Obasanya, who's a Nigerian player. You have Colin Hughes. You have Isaac McAdoo, who becomes the captain. You have Zorro, the eccentric goalie, which I can relate to. You have Will the Kit Man, who replaces Nate. All these amazing cast of characters. And one of my favorites is Trent Crimm from a newspaper called The Independent. And Trent Crimm is very cynical, very biased at first on the press conferences when Ted Lasso comes in. He recognizes Ted Lasso to be kind of like this bumpus guy from Kansas who coached American football, has no idea how to coach soccer, football in the Premier League. And Trent Crimm kind of takes Ted Lasso down at every single press conference, and he attacks him every chance he can get. He's a hardcore journalist. Maybe because I'm a writer, maybe that's because I love the character of Trent Crimm, and he has so much fantastic hair. I'm jealous. What an amazing actor. Like I said, all of them. So I watched Ted Lasso every Saturday night, 2 episodes, and it went on for months till I got to season 3, and I watched the conclusion. And I have to admit, when it was over, I almost cried. And it's the Dr. Seuss thing. Don't cry that it's over. Be happy that you experienced it. And I thought to myself, my gosh, this TV show became such a part of my life. The pub scenes, the 3 friends there in the pub with the owner of the pub, May, and all the people that come to the pub and root for AFC Richmond, the local pub. The scenes shot in and around the little village square, the little center outside the pub where Coach Beard and Coach Lasso have an apartment. And they're just so intimate. They show how the sport of football, just like I was saying with the World Cup, becomes part of the culture of the town, the city, the supporters. It's embedded into the life. And Ted Lasso captures that. I think it captures it perfectly. It captures it as much as the Scottish fans did going to the Sam Adams Brewery in Boston and drinking it dry, and the Norwegian supporters doing the Viking row up the escalator in the train subways, and all this support from these fanatical fans. And it's not just about football. It's like Danny Rojas, the superstar Mexican player who comes to AFC Richmond, who's an actual soccer player, by the way, an actual football player. And he says, football is life. And then when you study it, Danny and Ted Lasso have parallels. They're both super energy, optimistic people. And I think that's what I enjoy so much about Ted Lasso, is its optimism. And yes, there's sad parts, there's heart-wrenching parts. It's normal life, and there's joy, and there's sadness, and there's flow in the daily life. But I think above all, the character of Ted Lasso just promotes optimism, positive energy, faith in humanity. Like he says, I'm not here for wins and losses, there to make it a better place. And at the end, when Ted does leave and eventually goes home to Kansas, he's left everybody in a better place. He made an impact on all these people's lives at great suffering of his own. He goes through some personal tribulations and trials, and his life changed. But everybody is left in a great place. And I think Ted Lasso, in a roundabout way, helped me to write the novel, A Quest for Good, A Story of Hope and Joy, because everything is just so sad and everything is so angry, like angry drivers beeping their horn because we're on the side of the road in an emergency breakdown. And I wrote that novel because I wanted some positive, feel-good energy to go out into the world. And I think that's what the show Ted Lasso does. It really does. And when I heard that they were going to bring Ted Lasso back with most of the cast of characters, not all of them, I had mixed feelings because it's going to be a season 4 and Ted's coming back. And I thought they left it at a wonderful place. And in my mind, I felt that that story ended perfectly. And I didn't want anything to taint that. I didn't want that to be changed. I didn't want to pick up new character arcs like Jamie Tart, who's the egotistical, handsome superstar goal scorer. And by the time he gets humbled, and Ted humbles him, and his teammates humble him, and his family humbles him, and he comes back to AFC Richmond after a stint at Man City. He comes back as a different human being. I didn't want to start those character arcs again and maybe taint them. People always said, oh, I wish you would keep writing Detective Odell, Paulie. Why'd you retire Odell? Because I felt it was time. I felt it was time. He fought the Russian mob, the Irish mob. He took on the serial killer, the corporate evil attorneys trying to take over companies, all these things that he did. He can only smoke so many cigarettes and drink so much Irish whiskey. It's time to leave the stories where they are, in a good spot. And I hope that Ted Lasso coming back for season 4, and I'm going to watch. I could not help myself. If I didn't watch, I'd be very, very sad. So I'm going to watch, but I hope it doesn't taint my feelings for the original. I'm going to call it the original Ted Lasso. And I felt so much about Ted Lasso, I bought myself a Christmas present last Christmas. The complete episodes finally came out on DVD. So I picked up the complete series, and I have now just finished watching it for the 3rd time. I've watched Ted Lasso 3 times through and enjoyed it every single time, because every single time I watch, the writing is so brilliant and so in depth. It's easy to get lost in the comedy and the huckster of mannerisms of Ted Lasso, but you miss the brilliance of the writing and the hidden nuances of each episode unless you study it really well. You miss the great soundtracks. Marcus Mumford from Mumford & Sons contributed and sings the theme song and all that, the opening song. But the correlation between the soundtrack music and what's happening in each episode, you can easily miss unless you pay attention to it. And watching it 2 or 3 times and making notes, I pick all that up, and it's just so fantastic. I can't advocate enough. If you're a football fan, that's great. If you're during the World Cup and you want to start watching this, to understand cultures and how the sport envelops people, that's fantastic. But if you're not a football fan, if you're not a soccer fan, even if you never tuned in a match in your life, you will still enjoy Ted Lasso. Brilliant acting, brilliant writing. Brett Goldstein as Roy Kent is just a fictional character that will live forever. He's that good. And the writers early on realized his writing brilliance, and he's a contributing writer to a lot of the episodes, as well as just a great actor. And all of them, I can't think of a single actor that's not good. Even Bumbercatch, these sideline players that you don't know too much about. They interact in locker room scenes and these amazing little sideline interactions that contribute so much to each episode. The actor for Isaac McAdoo is fabulous. He's just fabulous. And Coach Beard, Brendan Hunt, right? So I sat down, and we take this seriously in the rated series. So once more, spoilers. So if you've never watched Ted Lasso, don't listen to this, please. I want you to enjoy the show. And I watched, like I said, I rewatched. And then I made notes. And I spent about 8 hours going through episodes and highlights and making notes and my former notes. And I came up with the rated series on the 5 best episodes of Ted Lasso. So here we are. I made it to 40 minutes. So I got to get through this. Come on, Paulie. So here we go. So on mention, I have the episode of Tan Lines. Tan Lines. And Tan Lines is got a lot of drama in it. It's the episode where Jamie Tart is at his egotistical best, and he's forgetting that he has a whole team, and he's scoring goals, and he's making a fool of himself out there because it's all about me, 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 me. And Ted Lasso recognizes that as great as Jamie Tart is, he's really not contributing to the success of the club. And he makes a fateful decision to bench and sub out Jamie Tart right after he scored 2 goals. And Ted Lasso climbs up in the stands. And his wife and his son are at the match visiting from Kansas. And they're sitting up in the booth with Rebecca and Higgins in the owner's booth. And Ted Lasso climbs through the stands and goes up and asks permission of Rebecca to take Jamie Tart out. And Rebecca is floored by that. It's just so great that the facial expressions and the acting. And she says, "You're the manager, Ted. You do what you want to do." And he does. And he benches Jamie Tart and subs him out. And also there's the whole sideline of what Ted's going through on a personal basis because his marriage has failed. And that's part of the reason he came over to London, to give his wife space to think about it. And there's some fantastic acting here by Jason. And he realizes that the marriage is over. And they have this very sad, I'm going to call it an awakening, as the taxi cab's about to take his son and his wife back to the airport to head back to America. And it's a touching scene, and it's an awakening for Mrs. Lasso as well as Ted, because they realize that their lives have changed and they're going to go in different directions. And there's a parallel on the different direction that Jamie Tart now takes too. Fantastic. My other honorable mention is Locker Room Follies. And Locker Room Follies it's about a personal journey of Colin Hughes and Isaac, the captain now, since Roy Kent was injured and retired. And Colin comes out as being a gay person, and he's concerned about the impact on the club. And Isaac defends him. And a spectator, a Richmond fan, makes a horrible remark, and Isaac loses his mind and goes up in the crowd and attacks the spectator and gets a red card, gets thrown out. And Isaac's going through a personal struggle, and Colin Hughes going through a personal struggle, and it all comes out. But the highlight of Follies is Roy Kent. And Roy Kent does a He does a press conference at the end of the match that just will floor you. It's just the most amazing acting performance by Brett Goldstein, and writing. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And it's just a touching episode. And once more, it tells the story of ordinary human beings and the struggles that we all go through, and how we're all different, but we're the same. And there's a scene in that when Trent Krim is in the locker room, and now Trent's writing a book, so he's kind of shadowing the club. And he after all this goes down in the locker room and they go back out on the pitch for the second half, Trent Krim, once more great acting, just looks at the locker room with his little notebook and gently closes the door with a smile on his face. But it's because he realizes that Ted Lasso is there to change people's lives. And he is doing so. Fabulous, fabulous writing. So those are my on mentions. So at number 5, I have Trent Krim, the Independent, the episode where Trent Krim is kind of the evil guy in the beginning, and he's working sort of kind of for the paper to write a expose piece on how Ted Lasso is kind of a fool. He's not the right manager. It's just a joke, maybe a PR stunt or whatever. And Rebecca's relishing this, and poor Higgins is going along with it, licking their chops that Trent Krim is going to write this horrible article about Ted Lasso. Krim shadows Ted Lasso for the entire day, both at training and then in the locker room after the match. And he realizes that, Ted Lasso is this guy from Kansas, and he's this happy huckster guy from the Midwest in America, and he's a fish out of water, but there's something special. And you can just feel it as the episode goes on. And it concludes with Trent and Ted Lasso going to dinner. Ted brings him to this Indian restaurant of a guy that he met in a taxi cab. And the guy invited him to come eat at his family's restaurant. And it's the hottest Indian food in the world. And Ted's insides are burning up. But he refuses to insult the man who owns the restaurant and his family. And he's devouring this Indian food, making as though he really loves it. And they keep bringing him more. And Trent Krim bails out because he can't handle it. Ted reveals that he uses Nate, the kit man, as strategy. And Trent Krim's writing this all down. He's just floored that this is happening in the Premier League. And Ted confesses he's not there for wins and losses. He's there to make the players' lives better. And Trent goes back and writes this article. And yes, he says he's out of his league. He doesn't know what he's doing. And he goes on, and Higgins calls Rebecca and he's reading the pre-copy of it. And the amazing part of this is, and once you watch Ted Lasso enough and you rewatch it, these are the nuances. Higgins starts reading the article over the phone to Rebecca, and then he changes the voice. The voice changes to Trent Krim's voice from Higgins' voice. And basically, Trent Krim becomes a Ted Lasso supporter. And he says, yes, the club will probably get relegated, but he'll be very sad when it does happen. He becomes a whole different person. Ted Lasso changes Krim's outlook on everything. At number 4, we have Diamond Dogs. And the Diamond Dogs are a group of men. It's Nate, Higgins, Coach Beard, and Ted Lasso. And later on, they invite Trent Krim into the Diamond Dogs. And it's a sideline meeting of men that they have in the coach's office, the manager's office, to discuss things other than football. Certainly what's going on with the club is discussed with the Diamond Dogs. And they do this silly thing where they howl like dogs and they have a meeting. But they help people with their fellow men with personal troubles. Roy Kent comes because of his relationship with Keeley, and Ted Lasso reveals some things about his marriage and his life and all these things. And the meeting of the Diamond Dogs is a highlight throughout the whole show. But the highlight of Diamond Dogs is the closing scene where Rupert Mannion, the evil owner of West Ham now and the former husband of Rebecca, buys a small ownership back in Richmond, AFC Richmond. Very small, but it allows him then to kind of like co-own. And he's going to sit in the owner's box and he's going to harass Rebecca. And he's an evil guy, great actor. He just passed away. Rest in peace. In the pub, they have this confrontation in May's pub. And what he doesn't realize, he being Rupert, is that Ted Lasso is a champion dart player. So Rupert makes the suggestion he's going to be in the owner's box every game, blah, blah, blah. So Ted challenges him to a dart match. And he says, if I win, you can't go anywhere near the owner's box while Rebecca's in charge. If you win, then obviously you do what you want. He does not realize that Ted Lasso is a great dart player. And Ted has a fantastic intro because he's making like he can't throw darts, but he's really left-handed. And Rupert shows this fancy set of darts and all this stuff. And he's hitting the bullseye as they warm up. And then Ted Lasso makes just so well acted. He says, oh, I forgot I'm left-handed. And bang. And you could tell by Rupert's facial expression, he knows he's doomed because Ted Lasso can put that dart anywhere he wants. And then Ted has a great quote from Walt Whitman saying when he was young, everybody put him down and discounted him. And Walt Whitman wrote, be curious, not judgmental. Great episode. Fantastic. At number 3 is Carol of the Bells, which is a Christmas episode about Christmas, and it aired in August. So I don't think the appreciation of the Christmas season was apparent. It's a lonely episode. Ted Lasso's kind of doing Christmas over the internet with his son. They're opening presents, and then Ted's like, oh, I'm going to have a great Christmas. And the son goes off and wants to do other Christmas stuff. And Ted's kind of left in his apartment by himself until Rebecca shows up. And then they go out giving presents to poor kids. And it's just absolutely fabulous. And the highlight is Higgins. Leslie Higgins has 5 children, 5 boys, a small, tiny house in London. And he has this tradition of inviting the players over every Christmas who can't go to their homes. They might be international players, Africa, France, Switzerland, wherever, and they can't get home, Canada. So he has this tradition of inviting players to his family's Christmas dinner. And he said usually 1 or 2 players come and take advantage of it. Well, this Christmas, pretty much half the club shows up. And Danny brings his pretty girlfriends, and the French guy brings wine, and Sam brings his food. And it's just this amazing scene in this tiny house of all these people celebrating Christmas. And they don't even have enough tables and enough room. So they're moving stuff and the table goes on. It looks like the Waltons out into the living room, and they have this Christmas celebration. And then there's some carolers, and you realize that Rebecca and Ted can really sing, and they sing Christmas songs. It's just a episode that I think a lot of people every single Christmas just watch like they watch other Christmas shows. So that's number 3, Carol of the Bells. Number 2 is Rainbow. And Rainbow, I had a hard time because I almost put Rainbow as number 1. And it comes from She's a Rainbow by the Rolling Stones, which is the cell phone ringtone for Higgins. Everybody's going through something during this episode. Keely's going through something. I'm going to get my notes here. So let me rattle them for a little effect here. and Nate is going through something with, he loves this gal, Jade, who's the hostess at the Taste of Athens, this little restaurant. It's not about football, folks. It's about football, but it's about life. And Roy Kent is going through this stuff, a struggle in his life because he's a pundit now and he still misses football. And Isaac's going through all kinds of trouble on a pitch where he can't get his head together. And Ted Lasso intervenes. And Ted plays with not only Roy Kent's mind, but he plays with everybody and encourages them. And he plants the seed in Roy Kent's mind. And it's hidden nuances throughout this episode, from Higgins right down through Jade at the Taste of Athens, to boost people up. And Ted Lasso kind of encourages Roy Kent to mentor Isaac. And he does. And he takes him to his old hood and shows him a sandlot soccer pitch where he learned to play soccer. And he preaches in his own F-bomb way. Roy Kent preaches to Isaac that yes, he's a professional, and yes, there's pressure, and yes, it's the Premier League, but you got to start having fun. Because Isaac's the captain now of AFC Richmond, and he's just not having fun. And Roy changes Isaac around. And then in a classic, absolute classic scene, Roy is on the air in his pundit with the Sky Sports, and Roy has this revelation because of these seeds that Ted Lasso has planted in his mind. And Roy knows that Ted was messing with him to come to Richmond and be a coach. And right there on the air, Roy makes the decision that this is not what he's supposed to be doing with his life. He needs to go back and be a coach. And he does. And it's just all these metaphors that occur when Roy walks out of the studios and he takes a cab and they're trying to get to the Nelson Road Stadium for the opening of the match. They're going through all these things and the taxi cab can't go any farther. And he finds a little bicycle cab guy. And the whole time, She's a Rainbow is playing in the background. Colors, all those lyrics about colors, rainbows. And he gets in this bicycle cab. And these are the things you miss until you watch Ted Lasso again. And the bicycle cab guy's got all color streamers on his bicycle cab. And the great Roy Kent is sitting in the back as he pedals his way frantically to get him to Nelson Road in time. And then the classic scene where he's got a bad knee and he tries to get into the stadium and his knee is giving out. It is fantastic writing. And he does make it just in time. He comes out on the pitch and he takes a deep breath, great camera angles, and he walks across the pitch, heading to where Ted Lasso, Coach Beard, and Nate are on the sideline. And the crowd realizes it's Roy Kent. And they start doing the Roy Kent is everywhere chant. And I'm not gonna say it exactly because it's got some obscenities, but they're just going crazy because Roy Kent is on the pitch. And when he walks by with his bad knee, the security officer, he fixes his knee and there's this giant crack, and the face on the security officer on the pitch is priceless. And then as he walks across the pitch, on the billboard on the sideboard is a advertisement for pain relieving heat. A liniment for heat relief, because of course his knee is so bad. These are the nuances of Ted Lasso that are just magnificent. And all the players realize what's happening. And of course, he comes and joins Ted Lasso, and Ted Lasso says, "Hello, Coach." And Coach Beard, Nate's not too happy. And that's the other sideline story. Nate's not too happy about Roy Kent showing up as a manager. But there you go. So that's number two. And number one is The Hope That Kills. And The Hope That Kills is the last episode in season 1 for Ted Lasso. And this is the season coming down to the nuts and bolts. They're facing relegation. AFC Richmond has to win this game. And it has everything you want in it. This is where Roy Kent realizes his career is over, and he picks the captain. Ted Lasso kind of instructs him to do, because the captain has to be on the pitch. So he picks Isaac, and Roy Kent recognized Isaac's passion in a meeting where Nate the Great's trying to motivate him with what Man City is saying about him, and Jamie Tartt's talking smack, and Isaac flips out and throws something and breaks the screen as they're going through the strategies and the motivational. And Roy Kent's just the sideline look. You knew that Roy Kent recognized Isaac McAdoo as being the heir apparent. And he does. He hands the captain band over to Isaac. And then Roy Kent comes on in the second half, and of course they switch each other second half of the match. And he makes a great play, his last play ever on the pitch, to catch Jamie Tartt on a breakaway and tackle him and get the ball away. It has everything you want in a Ted Lasso episode. And Ted Lasso always emphasized in his plays, and he always got on Jamie Tartt for not making the extra pass when he was at AFC Richmond. And he always coached him and said, you're not a teammate. You got to make the extra pass. It can't always be about you scoring the goals. And they do a Ted Lasso special trick play and create chaos, and they tie the match up with about 2 minutes left in regulation time. And then heartbreak occurs right at the end after Roy Kent's gone off with the injury and all this drama. And Jamie Tartt breaks down and he makes the extra pass. And his teammate scores for Man City, and Richmond is relegated. The shots on the spectators, there's an older fellow who's just holding his head and shaking. It just shows you how the football club is ingrained into these people's lives. Fantastic. And it has one of the greatest Ted Lasso locker room speeches you'll ever experience. And then, of course, Ted believes he's going to get fired, get sacked, and he writes a resignation letter on the back of a takeout menu, and he tries to resign. And Rebecca says, no, you're coming back next year and we're going to win it all. But the great closing scene is Man City getting on their team bus to go back, because this was a home game for Richmond. And Coach Beard comes up to Jamie Tartt as he's getting on the bus and hands him an envelope. And he says, all Coach Beard says is, have a good night, Jamie. And when Jamie gets on the bus, he opens the little envelope, and inside is a note from Ted Lasso saying, way to make that extra pass. And Ted has this thing where he gives everybody these little toy soldiers. Once more, one of these hidden nuances of Ted Lasso. He gave one to Rebecca. He gave one to Sam, but Sam couldn't take it because it's army and colonization of Nigeria. All these hidden stuff. These hidden nuances. And his son, Ted's son, had given the toy soldiers as a gift to watch over people and to protect them, protect his father while he's there overseas in London working. And Ted gives them out. But of great significance is the one toy soldier that he gives to Jamie Tartt, because it's the soldier who's looking through the binoculars with his arm up, observing. And what Ted's trying to tell Jamie Tartt is he'll always be there for him. He's watching over Jamie Tartt. And Philip Dunster, the expression, he doesn't say a word. He's just in the seat. Just the facial expression is priceless, because he realizes that Ted is on his side and he did not want him to leave Richmond and go to Man City. Fabulous, fabulous episode. That's number one on the Paulie list. Oh, my goodness gracious. This was so hard. I studied this for so long. So on mention, to do a wrap up here, just a hairpin over my time, but I'm going to make it. On mention is Tan Lines, Locker Room Follies. Number 5 is Trent Krim, The Independent. Number 4 is Diamond Dogs with the fantastic dart scene in the pub. Number 3 is the Christmas episode, Carol of the Bells. Number 2 is Rainbow. And I don't think I mentioned Rainbow, the coinciding of the music, Rolling Stones, She's a Rainbow, when Higgins' wife meets him in the hallway just before they're going to go up to the owner's box. And the lyrics from the Stones is dressed in blue, and she's all dressed in blue. And it's Higgins' ringtone, because that's the song they was playing when they met. Fantastic stuff. And number 1 is The Hope That Kills. So there you go, a rated series and a lot of background stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any comments, suggestions for the rated series, or if you want to say happy birthday, Mom, and I'll pass that along to dear mom. It is godblessthekegpublishing@gmail.com. godblessthekegpublishing@gmail.com. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy from Paterson, New Jersey. But what I do know is don't speed out there. And don't beep your horn at people trying to change your tire on the off-ramp. Hey, please be kind. Please be very gentle. Be very tolerant. Remember, kindness is for free. Spread it around as much as you can. It can only make this world a better place. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye for now.